Imagine a life that looks absolutely perfect on paper.
Right, the ultimate success story.
Exactly. You have the elite corporate job, the overflowing social calendar, the relentless hobbies that just make everyone else feel slightly lazy just hearing about them.
Yeah, the ones where people are running marathons on a Tuesday.
Yes, but then you step into your beautiful apartment, the door clicks shut behind you, the room goes completely quiet, and you feel this terrifying, suffocating panic.
It's a very real phenomenon.
It is. And today, we're exploring why society's definition of, like, thriving might actually be a highly sophisticated defense mechanism against our own minds.
It is a profound paradox, really. We've somehow engineered a culture where perpetual motion is applauded as vitality.
When in reality, for so many people, that motion is just a desperate attempt to outrun a phantom.
Precisely.
Well, welcome to our exploration for today. We have a really fascinating mission ahead of us.
We do, and I'm very excited about the materials we're looking at.
Same here. We are examining a stack of personal development texts today. And just as a reminder, we're doing this completely anonymously.
Right, stripping away any identifying authors or publishing houses.
Exactly, just to get to the raw, unfiltered truth about one of the most misunderstood aspects of the modern human experience.
We are unpacking the profound, life-altering difference between being alone and being lonely.
Which is huge. And we're going to look at how mastering solitude might actually be the ultimate key to unlocking human potential.
But doing that requires a complete teardown of how we currently view isolation.
Because we usually treat those two concepts as the exact same thing, right? Like aloneness and loneliness.
We do. But psychologically speaking, they exist in entirely different universes.
So to ground this, I want to introduce you to a protagonist inspired directly by the narratives in our source materials. Let's call her the always-on achiever.
I like that name. It fits perfectly.
Right. So she is a 35-year-old woman, and to anyone observing her from the outside, she is the absolute pinnacle of modern success.
She has the corporate executive title.
Yep. Total financial stability, and her social network is just vast and constantly active.
She is the person you look at and genuinely wonder how she fits it all into 24 hours.
I mean, the sheer logistics of her life seem physically impossible.
Totally impossible.
She's in this permanent state of velocity. To prove her mental and physical toughness, she doesn't just jog, she does extreme sports.
Oh, right. We are talking paragliding on a Tuesday morning.
Registering for 60-kilometer bike races through the mountains.
Mm-hmm.
And then on her weekends, when a normal person might finally just, collapse on the couch.
She's volunteering at the local hospital.
Yes. Or she's constantly redecorating her apartment, constantly planning the next dinner party.
But here's the critical detail, the telltale symptom, really.
Yeah, this is the part that got me. If she happens to be home alone for even 10 minutes, the television or the radio has to be playing in the background.
Even if she is in the shower.
Even if she is entirely focused on cooking and not absorbing a single word being broadcast.
Because the silence itself is perceived as a threat.
The atmospheric void just has to be plugged with external noise, no matter how meaningless that noise actually is.
Exactly. Because despite doing everything supposedly right,
despite checking every single box that our culture says will produce happiness,
she feels this crushing, hollow void.
Yeah.
The absolute second the room actually goes quiet.
The silence feels heavy. It feels like an accusation to her.
It manifests as a sensation of non-existence. Without the external stimuli, without the podcast, the TV, the buzzing phone, or the demanding friend, her internal reality feels like a terrifying vacuum.
It's basically a sensory deprivation tank of her own making.
And her brain interprets that lack of input as a literal existential crisis.
So she does what almost any of us would do in that situation, I guess. She diagnoses the problem as an environmental issue.
Right. She thinks, I just need a fresh start. My surroundings are stale.
She initiates a massive life pivot. She amicably ends an 18-year relationship with a perfectly kind, supportive partner because she feels this vague sense of being stifled.
She requests a massive job transfer.
Packs up her life, moves to a vibrant, dynamic new city across the country, and sets out to start completely from scratch.
And against all odds, she pulls it off.
She totally does. She gets the gorgeous new apartment with the better view, she gets the promotion, and she immediately curates this exciting new social scene.
The geographic cure. It is the oldest trick in the psychological playbook.
Miraculously, terribly, 6 months after unpacking her final box, that exact same heavy, suffocating feeling creeps back into her chest.
The void is back.
And it is arguably worse now because she has played her final card. She changed the scenery, and the ghost just followed her anyway.
Which brings us to the central question for you, the listener.
Why, when this woman's life looks like a literal highlight reel, does a quiet Saturday with no plans feel like a terrifying punishment?
Well, we have to look past the culturally approved veneer of her actions.
Our immediate societal instinct is to applaud her busyness, isn't it?
Oh, always. We see the extreme mountain biking, the hospital charity work, the constant forward momentum, and we immediately label it passion or drive.
But the anonymous texts we're examining today suggest a radically different interpretation.
They really do. This hyperactivity isn't a sign of a robust life force. It is a highly sophisticated, incredibly exhausting emotional defense mechanism.
But a defense against what? I mean, what is so terrifying about her own living room?
She is defending against her own unfiltered self.
Wow.
Yeah. One of our core texts introduces this really profound framework regarding early childhood emotional voids.
Okay, let's break that down.
This dynamic almost always begins in the developmental years, when a child subtly registers that they must play a highly specific role in order to secure love, safety, or validation from their caregivers.
You were talking about the perception of conditional love.
Exactly.
The idea that, like, I am only safe if I am useful, or I am only loved if I am quiet.
Let's look at the mechanics of how that actually forms. Imagine a scenario where a parent unconsciously wanted a different kind of child.
Okay.
Perhaps they desperately wanted a boy to carry on a family name and they had a girl. Or perhaps the parents were entirely consumed by their own unresolved grief, chronic stress, or financial panic.
Making them emotionally unavailable to the kid.
Right. Children are incredibly perceptive emotional radar systems. The child absorbs this subtle, nonverbal disappointment or absence.
They sense a distance.
And to survive that distance, they begin to overcompensate. They actively bury their own natural quirks.
They prune away the parts of their personality that don't serve a utilitarian purpose.
Exactly. They morph into whatever shape they think will prevent the parent from withdrawing affection.
They become the good girl, the tough tomboy, the hilarious class clown, or the perfect invisible student.
They become a human chameleon. They learn to read the emotional temperature of a room before they even know how to read a book.
That is so sad, but it makes so much sense.
And this survival tactic doesn't simply vanish when they turn 18. It calcifies into adulthood.
So our always-on achiever isn't actually living for herself.
No, she is operating an avatar. He has constructed this flawless, high-performing persona designed to please society, to impress her colleagues, and most importantly, to be unleavable.
Unleavable, that's a powerful word. So the sheer crushing exhaustion she feels at the end of the day isn't from the physical exertion of the mountain biking or the long corporate hours.
Not at all. It is from the psychological labor of suppressing her actual soul. She is constantly putting on a high-stakes theatrical performance to prevent the world from abandoning her.
Okay, I want to pause here and really test this idea because it challenges a lot of our basic assumptions about good behavior.
Sure, let's test it.
Wait, so her packing her weekend with noble things like charity work at the children's hospital or pushing her physical limits in extreme sports, you're saying those actions are actually symptoms of a hidden emotional void?
I am.
Because society hands out literal awards for that kind of behavior. We put those people on magazine covers.
You are identifying the exact trap the texts are warning us about. The actions themselves, volunteering at a hospital, exercising, are objectively positive. No one is saying those things are bad.
Right, right.
But the underlying motivation driving the behavior is what we are questioning. If we pull back the layers, she isn't volunteering out of a massive surplus of internal joy or a grounded sense of altruism.
She is doing it to prove she is useful.
Yes, she is doing it to artificially pump herself up with a sense of worth, because fundamentally underneath the avatar, she feels entirely worthless when she is just sitting still.
It functions as a psychological prosthetic.
That's a great way to put it.
That makes incredible sense. It is like having a computer with 100 browser tabs open simultaneously.
Oh, I love this analogy.
And every single tab is tailored to a completely different person you are trying to please. You have the perfect, indispensable employee tab running, draining memory.
You have the selfless charitable citizen tab open.
You have the hardcore extreme athlete tab, the perfect daughter tab, the always available friend tab. You are running so many heavy, complex background programs for other people that your own core operating system just completely crashes.
The fan is spinning out of control.
Exactly. The cooling fan is screaming, the battery is at 1%, and you are sitting there bewildered, wondering why you were so burned out when you were just trying to run the exact program society told you to install.
That analogy perfectly captures the cognitive load of this lifestyle. The CPU is completely maxed out on performance and external rendering, leaving absolutely zero processing power for genuine internal existence.
The machine is redlining 24 hours a day.
And this brings us to the terrifying precipice our achiever faces. If her internal system is crashing because she is constantly wearing this heavy mask and running these background programs.
What actually happens when the mask comes off in an empty room?
Exactly. When the dinner party ends, the door locks and all those browser tabs are suddenly forced closed.
Total system panic. Because once the programs stop running, you stare at the blank screen and realize you don't even know what your default wallpaper looks like anymore.
You have lost access to your base code.
Man, that's heavy. And that profound disorientation is what transitions us into a crucial redefinition within our materials today.
We have to fundamentally alter our understanding of what loneliness actually is and how it differs from simply being alone.
This was the concept that completely shifted my perspective when I was reading the sources. The texts draw an incredibly sharp, uncompromising distinction between loneliness and solitude.
A vital distinction.
For most of my life, I assumed loneliness was just a math problem, the physical absence of other human beings in your immediate vicinity.
Many people think that.
But the authors argue that loneliness has absolutely nothing to do with a head count. Loneliness is the painful, terrifying inability to find yourself inside you.
It is a crisis of internal disconnect, not an external deficit of warm bodies. You can have 50 people in your living room praising you, and if you cannot locate your own authentic voice beneath the noise, you will feel entirely desolate.
It is the tragedy of viewing your own alone time through this agonizing lens of misery, sympathy, and self-pity.
You look at yourself sitting on the couch on a Friday night, and the narrative in your head is, oh, you poor thing.
Right. You are a loser. Nobody wants to hang out with you. You are missing out. You basically become your own bully.
You really do.
Solitude, conversely, is framed in these texts as a conscious, luxurious, fiercely protected choice to be in your own company.
To understand why we default to the painful version loneliness, we have to look at how our culture actively, aggressively turns being alone into a taboo.
Let's get into that.
Think back to your earliest memories of social conditioning. Think about the school cafeteria.
Oh boy, the ultimate proving ground.
We are taught, almost from the moment we enter the educational system, that the kid sitting alone at the lunch table or wandering the edge of the schoolyard by themselves is a weirdo.
They are the ultimate cautionary tale of the social ecosystem.
They are the one who wasn't chosen.
They are the visible representation of social failure. And children are absolutely terrified of catching that disease.
Exactly the point. To avoid becoming that cautionary tale, to avoid the cafeteria exile, we learn to conform.
And conformity requires 1,000 tiny daily betrayals of our true selves.
It really does. We say yes to social outings we secretly dread because we fear losing our spot in the group text.
We spend money we don't have on clothes that are physically uncomfortable, purely because they are socially validated by our peer group.
We force laughter at jokes we find tedious, hollow, or even offensive just to mirror the energy of the room.
But here is the tragic irony the texts reveal. The wider the gap grows between who we truly are and the mask we wear to maintain our social standing, the lonelier we feel.
The absolute worst, most incurable kind of loneliness is the sudden, chilling realization that you have lost your real essence in the pursuit of being liked.
Okay, I want to step in and play devil's advocate for a moment here.
Oh, correct.
I hear what the texts are saying about conformity, but isn't it just basic, hardwired human nature to want to belong? I mean, anthropologically speaking, we are biological pack animals.
That's true.
If you go back 10,000 years, if you got separated from your tribe on the savannah, you didn't go on a journey of self-discovery. You died.
You were eaten by a predator or you starved.
Exactly. Our nervous systems evolved to panic when we are isolated. So isn't it a bit idealistic, maybe even naive, for these authors to sit in their modern homes and say we shouldn't care if we were accepted by the group?
That is the exact paradox these authors are wrestling with, and it is a brilliant pushback. You are completely right about the biology.
Yeah.
Evolutionarily, isolation meant literal death. Our amygdala, the fear center of the brain, is hardwired to sound a massive chemical alarm when we feel separated from the tribe.
So they aren't ignoring science then?
No, the texts are not suggesting our biology is flawed, nor are they arguing against the profound, beautiful need for authentic human connection.
Then what are they saying?
What they are arguing is that our modern environment has hijacked that biological alarm bell.
Hijacked it how? By offering us a fake version of the tribe.
By offering a tribe that only accepts the avatar.
Oh, I see.
The nuance here is critical. A connection based on a fabricated version of yourself is the exact mechanism that causes the hollow void to expand. When your ancient brain seeks connection, it wants you to be connected, not a character you are playing.
Because it operates as a proxy. The validation isn't actually reaching the target.
You are hitting on the core tragedy here. If your entire social circle, your partner, and your colleagues love the mask you wear,
If they love the always-on achiever who never complains and always organizes the events,
then the real you, hidden safely behind that mask, is still sitting in the dark, entirely unseen. You are receiving massive amounts of social validation, yes, but it is being delivered to the wrong address.
delivered to the wrong address. That is a brutal way to put it, but so accurate.
The avatar is constantly being fed at banquets, but the soul is malnourished. The biological need for connection isn't being met because the true self isn't the one connecting.
I want to sit with that for a second. That is deeply unsettling.
It's a hard truth to swallow.
Because it means we can exhaust ourselves completely, spending decades building this massive, sprawling social network, climbing the corporate ladder, getting thousands of followers, and still die of emotional starvation.
Yes.
And this emotional starvation, this constant low-level panic
Yeah.
of the real self screaming for nutrients from behind the mask,
Yeah.
it makes us desperate.
And desperation is the absolute enemy of clarity.
So true.
When we are desperate, our psychology begins to malfunction in highly predictable ways. We start blurring the lines between completely different categories of human experience, looking for any possible relief.
Which brings us to one of the most brilliant paradigm-shifting insights from our sources today. The texts present this fascinating psychological alchemy that separates our needs from our desires.
This part is crucial.
And I think culturally, we conceptually blur these two words together all day long.
We conflate them constantly to our great detriment.
Yeah, let's unpack that.
If we break down the fundamental architecture of human existence, a need like hunger, thirst, physical shelter, baseline warmth, oxygen requires immediate, concrete, physical fulfillment.
Right. If you are freezing, you do not need to philosophize about warmth. You need a blanket.
Exactly. If you don't acquire water, your biology begins a systematic shutdown. Needs are binary, physical, and tied to bodily survival.
You either have the oxygen in your lungs or you are suffocating. There is no middle ground.
Desires, however, operate on a completely different elevated plane.
How so?
Desires are deeply, profoundly psychological. Their evolutionary and spiritual purpose is not necessarily to be instantly satiated.
Okay, that's counterintuitive.
They exist to keep the human mind energized. They keep us in a state of motion. They spark creativity, innovation, and forward momentum.
Right, they give us something to aim for.
What is genuinely revolutionary in these texts is the proposition that you do not actually have to acquire the object of a desire to derive happiness and vitality from it.
Which sounds completely insane to a modern ear.
Yeah.
I mean, we are taught that an unfulfilled desire is a failure.
We are conditioned to view tension as a problem to be solved immediately.
Yes.
But the authors argue that the act of desiring itself, the daydreaming, the intricate planning, the forward-looking tension of imagining a better future is a vital life force.
It is the electricity that keeps the psyche robust and engaged in the mystery of tomorrow.
Exactly.
But then, modern consumerism enters the chat.
Yeah.
And the entire machinery of instant gratification culture has essentially taken our beautiful, complex desires and mutated them into urgent panic needs.
It has weaponized them.
We feel a psychological pang. Maybe it is a fleeting moment of Sunday afternoon boredom or a vague, melancholic desire for novelty, and the society we live in immediately tells us this is an emergency.
You need to buy a new outfit right now to fix this feeling.
Or you need to download this dating app and swipe until you feel numb.
We treat complex, nuanced emotional states like acute physical emergencies that require an immediate transactional fix.
It is the psychological equivalent of treating a paper cut with a defibrillator.
Oh my gosh, yes.
It is a massive, inappropriate overreaction that entirely misses the point of the sensation. Our always-on achiever did exactly this.
She sure did.
She felt an internal spiritual emptiness, a profound desire to finally discover who she was beneath the corporate titles, and she misdiagnosed it as a geographical emergency.
She uprooted her entire life, broke a lease, moved to a new city, changed her entire external reality.
Treating a soul-level desire for internal exploration as if it were a physical need for a different zip code. There is this poignant, incredibly vivid story from one of the texts that illustrates this exact trap so perfectly. Is an old fable about a traveler from the ancient city of Isfahan.
Oh, I love this story. Please share it. The narrative really anchors the theory here.
Okay, so we have this man from Isfahan. He has squandered his family inheritance, he's made terrible choices, and he is completely destitute. He's at rock bottom.
A desperate man.
Right. And one night, sleeping on the floor, he has this incredibly vivid, visceral dream. A booming voice tells him that his salvation, a massive fortune, a hidden treasure, is waiting for him in the distant, exotic city of Baghdad.
And it gives him specific instructions, right?
Yes, the voice even tells him it is buried at a very specific spot.
A literal shining desire placed on the horizon, pulling him forward.
So he wakes up, entirely convinced. He doesn't look inward, he looks outward. He immediately embarks on this grueling, incredibly dangerous journey across the desert to Baghdad.
He endures a lot.
He nearly starves. He arrives in the city completely penniless, his clothes in rags. He is wandering the strange streets at night, looking for the specific spot from his dream, trying to figure out how to survive.
And then things get worse.
Yeah, he gets swept up by the local night patrol. The guards mistake him for a roaming thief, and they just beat him mercilessly. They throw him to the ground, interrogating him.
He endures incredible physical and psychological suffering, all in pursuit of this externalized solution.
Exactly. Finally, bleeding and exhausted, he manages to explain his situation to the captain of the guards. He tells him about the dream of the treasure with such desperate earnestness that the captain actually pauses and believes he isn't a thief, just a madman.
But the captain's reaction is the best part.
The captain laughs in his face and says, "You absolute fool. You undertook this massive, painful, life-threatening journey based on a phantom in your sleep? I've had a recurring dream for years. Every month, I dream there is a massive treasure hidden back in the city of Isfahan."
Back in the traveler's home city.
Right. It is buried under the floorboards of a specific little white house on a specific winding street. And the captain proceeds to describe the house in perfect, agonizing detail.
And here's where the illusion collapses.
The house the captain describes, down to the color of the door and the shape of the windows, is the traveler's own house back in Isfahan.
Oh.
The massive treasure he traveled hundreds of miles for, the treasure he was beaten and starved for, had been buried under his own floorboards back home the entire time. He was sleeping on top of it while he dreamed of Baghdad.
It is a breathtaking metaphor for the human condition.
It really is. The treasure was always there, radiating underneath him, but he had to take the painful, exhausting, external journey to realize it.
We all do that.
And I think about our achiever moving to a new city. We keep swiping our credit cards, we keep changing our jobs, we keep cycling through romantic relationships to fix these internal empty spaces.
We are looking for the treasure in Baghdad.
We are trying to quench a deep spiritual thirst by aggressively drinking salt water.
That's a great way to describe it.
It feels like drinking. The motion mimics hydration, but it doesn't hydrate you. The salt actually draws the moisture out of your cells. It accelerates the dehydration. It just makes us infinitely thirstier.
The mechanics of that saltwater analogy are incredibly precise. When we treat a complex desire for internal peace as a frantic need for external accumulation, we are literally drinking the sea.
Right.
The more external validation we consume to fill the internal void, the larger and more demanding the void becomes. The avatar gets stronger, and the true self gets weaker.
So, if the treasure is truly buried in our own internal house, under our own psychological floorboards, how do we actually pry up the wood and start digging?
That is the big question.
Because clearly moving to Baghdad or a vibrant new city or buying a new car is just running away from the shovel.
The solution the texts provide is devastatingly simple to articulate, but agonizingly difficult to execute in modern society.
Okay, lay it on us.
We have to stop running. We have to physically sit still and face the very thing we have been terrified of our entire lives, our own unfiltered, unmedicated, undistracted mind.
Which brings us to what the authors call the crucible of boredom. And this is where the real work begins.
The materials are uncompromising on this point. They explicitly urge the reader to intentionally come face to face with your mind.
Think about the mechanics of being alone.
When you are truly alone, without screens, without podcasts, without music, without a book to escape into, you are dealing with just one mind, yours.
And for someone who has done the internal work, who is at peace with their history, this is a profound luxury. It is a sanctuary.
But for someone who has spent decades running from themselves, leaving tabs open and wearing masks,
It feels like a maximum security prison.
exactly, we have to intentionally, repeatedly learn how to sit in conscious boredom.
Conscious boredom. I mean, that phrase alone sounds like a contradiction in 2026. We treat boredom like a disease that must be eradicated at all costs.
We do. But to understand why boredom is necessary, consider the biological mechanics of digestion.
Okay, I like where this is going.
The human mind requires uninterrupted time to digest experiences in the exact same way the biological stomach requires time, rest, and energy to digest food.
Let's unpack this mental metabolism idea. I love this.
Think about your body after a massive meal. Your parasympathetic nervous system engages.
The rest and digest mode.
Right. Your body routes blood flow away from your skeletal muscles and directs it entirely to your digestive tract. You feel tired, you rest. The body requires stillness to extract nutrients from the food.
Makes sense.
Now apply that to the brain. If you constantly consume information, if you are scrolling social media feeds on your commute, listening to intensely opinionated audio while you work out, reading the news while you eat,
Watching television from the absolute second you wake up to the moment you fall asleep.
yes, your psychological stomach never gets a chance to digest the input.
You never extract the actual nutrients, the lessons, the meaning from your own lived experiences. You just pass them through the system completely whole
Exactly. You become a mere echo chamber of your surroundings.
because you aren't processing anything.
You lose the capacity for original thought because you haven't allowed the intricate machinery of your mind, the necessary silence, to process the raw, chaotic material of your days.
You don't know how you feel about a political event or a personal conflict because you immediately seek out a commentator to tell you how you should feel.
It's outsourcing your own consciousness.
It is like sitting at a table eating a decadent, endless 10-course meal while sprinting on a treadmill at a full incline.
That sounds exhausting.
You physically cannot do both. You have to step off the treadmill, sit down in a chair, and let the system process the caloric input, or you're going to get violently, dangerously ill.
And honestly, looking at the anxiety rates of our culture, I think a massive portion of the population is walking around psychologically nauseous all the time.
Deeply nauseous, bloated with unexamined information, and exhausted.
And the texts do not sugarcoat the remedy. They explicitly note that stepping off that mental treadmill and sitting in complete silence is initially going to be profoundly painful.
It is a literal withdrawal phase.
It is.
Let's walk through what that actually looks like minute by minute, because I think people try this for 3 minutes, panic, and assume they are broken.
Let's break it down. You turn off your phone, you sit on your couch, and the room goes silent.
Okay.
Minute 1. You feel a strange novelty. It's quiet.
Not so bad yet.
Minute 3. The physical twitch begins. Your hand instinctively reaches for your pocket to check a notification that doesn't exist. Your brain is begging for a dopamine hit.
We've all felt that twitch.
By minute 10, when the brain realizes the distraction isn't coming, it rebels.
Also,
It decides that if you won't give it external noise, it will generate internal noise.
Yeah.
It will throw every ounce of guilt, every past regret, every unresolved social anxiety, and every cringeworthy memory from 10 years ago right at the front of your consciousness.
it replays that stupid thing you said at a party in 2018 on a loop.
Yes, exactly. It reminds you of past failures. It surfaces your deepest insecurities. This is the crucible.
Oh, wow.
The brain is effectively throwing a tantrum, trying to make the silence so agonizing that you are forced to turn the TV back on just to drown it out.
It wants the anesthesia of distraction.
But here is the secret the texts reveal. By sitting through that discomfort, by enduring the guilt, the anxiety, and the phantom dopamine cravings, without reaching for a phone, without calling a friend to vent, without turning on the noise,
You push through to the other side.
you begin to build immense, unshakable psychological self-control. Around minute 20, something shifts. The storm runs out of energy.
My fan ferments.
You slowly realize that your mind is not your enemy. The thoughts, no matter how loud or critical, cannot actually physically harm you.
They're just weather passing through the sky. You are the sky, not the storm.
And as the weather clears, as the cache is finally emptied, you realize your mind is actually a compass.
Boredom, once you bravely push through the panic phase of it, ceases to be an emptiness.
It becomes the ultimate catalyst for out-of-the-box creativity and deep self-knowledge.
That is such a vital countercultural point. We view boredom as a lack of stimulation, a void, a negative state. but it is actually a clearing of the brush.
It's making room.
Once that noise clears and you finally stop fearing the sound of your own unedited thoughts, a massive paradigm shift happens.
The texts describe this beautiful transition where solitude morphs from being a terrifying waiting room, where you are just nervously tapping your foot waiting for your real life to happen, into a high-powered, dynamic laboratory for personal growth.
Which leads us directly into the final, and perhaps most actionable, framework from our materials. Once you can sit in the silence, what do you build there?
The authors call this the construction of the internal house.
Constructing the house of the self. This was such a vivid architectural framework.
It really is.
The text described the process of building psychological autonomy as quite literally acting as an architect for an internal house. And what does a durable house need to withstand the elements?
It needs strong, impenetrable walls and a warm, sustainable hearth at the center.
Let's translate that architecture. The walls represent boundaries and uncompromising rules.
This is the cultivated capacity to say no without offering a frantic, apologetic explanation.
Just simple no.
It is the ability to protect your finite energy from external intrusion. It's like setting up a psychological firewall on your network. You have to actively code which IP addresses which people's demands, which societal expectations are allowed to ping your server, and which are blocked at the perimeter.
And the hearth in the center of the house represents self-love and internal energy generation. It is the fire that keeps you warm when no one else is in the room to validate you.
And when you have those secure, firewalled walls and that warm, self-sustaining fire, your vital energy isn't leaking out into the neighborhood anymore.
It isn't bleeding out to please strangers on the internet or distant acquaintances.
It flows freely inward to all the plants in your internal garden, your quirky hobbies, your peace of mind, your genuine, entirely unmarketable interests.
If we look back historically, this is exactly what the great artists, inventors, and deep thinkers did. They actively, intentionally chose solitude.
They didn't just stumble into it because they were unpopular.
Right, they protected it fiercely. They erected massive walls to eliminate the noise of their eras so they could cultivate that internal garden.
Focus is framed in these texts as the ultimate modern luxury.
In an economy engineered by thousands of brilliant people to steal your attention every second of the day, being able to focus on your own mind is like owning a super yacht.
It is the rarest, most valuable commodity on earth. The texts challenge the reader to stop constantly dating other people for a moment and learn the intricate art of dating themselves.
To become intimately familiar with their own goals, their own rhythms, their own genuine preferences when no one is watching.
Exactly.
Okay, I have to hit the pause button and push back on this, just practically speaking.
Sure, let's hear it.
Because it sounds incredibly beautiful and poetic. Cultivate your internal garden. Build your fortress. But let's look at the reality of the listener right now.
The day-to-day reality.
How does a regular person, someone with a crushing mortgage, an overwhelming corporate job, a spouse, young kids, and a smartphone that vibrates every 40 seconds with an ostensibly urgent email, how do they protect that garden?
It's a fair question.
We cannot all just abandon our lives, move to a remote desert in a canvas tent, and paint landscapes.
And the authors fully acknowledge that modern reality. The advice here is not about geographic, permanent physical isolation. It is about a daily, highly intentional practice of psychological withdrawal.
We're talking about micro-solitude.
Yes. The implementation of microsolitude. It means intentionally carving out time, perhaps just 20 to 30 minutes a day, to do something purely for yourself that has absolutely zero productive value in the capitalist sense and zero social clout.
Walk me through what that actually looks like in practice, because my brain immediately thinks, okay, I'll spend 20 minutes learning to code so I can get a better job.
But that's just another browser tab, isn't it?
Right. That is a brilliant distinction. Yes, learning to code for a promotion is still feeding the avatar.
Exactly. A true act of microsolitude looks like learning the syntax of a dead language, like Latin or ancient Greek, just for the pure, private, intellectual joy of understanding how the grammar works.
You will never put it on a resume.
Yeah.
You will never speak it at a party.
Or it looks like buying cheap charcoal and sketching the tree outside your window, knowing you have absolutely no talent, the drawing is objectively terrible, and you will throw it in the trash when you are done.
It is an action taken entirely for the internal self, entirely divorced from performance, outcome, or audience.
It is the profound difficulty of doing something with zero market value, purely to prove to yourself that your worth isn't tied to your output.
Wow.
Furthermore, the texts point out that building this house means breaking what they call the savior complex.
This psychological ambulance concept. This is revolutionary for anyone who identifies as a people pleaser.
It really is.
I loved this framework. It is the arduous process of breaking the habit where you feel fundamentally, personally responsible for everyone else's emotional state.
Which so many of us do.
You have to realize and internalize that you are not a psychological ambulance meant to be dispatched 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to rescue your friends, your family, or your coworkers from their own boredom, their own poor decisions, or their own crises.
When you constantly rush to save others from their discomfort, you are often just avoiding your own.
That's a huge realization.
Setting that boundary, parking the ambulance, is how you pour the concrete for the wall of the internal house. And cultivating the beautifully useless, joyful hobby is how you water the garden inside.
That is so incredibly freeing. You are not an ambulance. You do not have a siren attached to your head.
No, you don't.
You are allowed to park the vehicle in the garage, turn the radio off, and stay inside your house.
You absolutely are.
So this really brings us to the ultimate payoff of this entire incredible journey inward. What actually happens to human potential when you strip away the noise?
When you no longer desperately need anyone else to validate your existence.
When you have built the house, lit the hearth, and tamed the mind.
What happens is a fundamental seismic shift in the geometry of all your relationships.
Let's look back at our protagonist, the always-on achiever we introduced at the very beginning.
To heal that void, she doesn't need to book another exotic vacation to Bali. She doesn't need to curate a new, edgier social circle.
She certainly doesn't need to sign up for another extreme marathon to prove her grit to her coworkers.
No, she has plenty of grit. She has an ocean of grit. She is just applying it to the entirely wrong obstacle.
Exactly. What she needs to do, the hardest, most terrifying thing she will ever do, is to sit in an empty living room, endure the incredibly uncomfortable screaming silence of her own withdrawal symptoms, and slowly, gently reintroduce herself to the person she abandoned decades ago in order to fit in.
She has to psychologically locate the little girl who was ignored or the teenager who is mocked for being weird and say, I am here now.
The house is built. The walls are strong. We do not have to perform for these people anymore.
And when she finally achieves that internal reunion, human potential is entirely redefined.
Success ceases to be about how much we can physically accumulate.
Yeah.
It ceases to be about how many people applaud us when we enter a room.
True power, true unshakable psychological invincibility is the ability to belong entirely to yourself in a world that literally profits off your self-doubt.
Belonging entirely to yourself, that gives me chills.
It's a beautiful concept.
Because when you reach that state, when you are no longer desperate for validation to keep your internal system running, your relationships transform, don't they?
They absolutely do.
They stop being these heavy, transactional, parasitic dependencies where you are desperately extracting worth from someone else just to survive the day.
They become genuine, free, joyful choices.
You hang out with someone because you actively delight in their soul, not because you need them to distract you from the terrifying silence of your own.
It is the monumental difference between navigating a hostage situation and building a true partnership. When you don't need someone to save you, you can finally just love them.
Wow. Okay, as we wrap up this exploration, I want to speak directly to you, the listener.
Yes, take a moment to reflect on this.
As you are going about your day,
Mm.
maybe you are driving home from work, maybe you are walking the dog, maybe you're staring at a screen. I want you to really examine your own life through the uncompromising lens of these texts.
Where are you currently exhausting yourself, draining your vital energy, trying to fit into a mold that was never designed for you?
Look at the browser tabs running in the background of your mind right now. Which ones are draining your battery to please an audience that doesn't actually care about your soul?
And crucially, which of your deep, beautiful psychological desires for peace, for creativity, or for stillness have you been tricked into treating as urgent, physical needs that require a credit card swipe or a dramatic life change to fix?
It is a profound, challenging inquiry.
Yeah.
It requires a level of radical honesty with oneself that most people spend their entire lives avoiding.
But it is the only path to the treasure under the floorboards.
It really is. And I want to leave you with a final lingering idea to mull over as the silence returns. Something to explore on your own that builds on everything we have unpacked today.
Let's hear it.
We have all heard that famous, somewhat cliched self-help adage that you become the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Right. The classic networking advice.
It is usually pitched as a ruthless networking tip.
Yeah.
Drop your lazy friends, find richer ones. But let's look at that math through the lens of solitude. If it is true that you absorb the traits of your most frequent companions. And you finally decide to turn off the television, put down the phone, stop the relentless performing, and spend focused, luxurious, fiercely protected quality time with your own mind. What kind of incredible, authentic person would you inevitably become?
If you become the person you spend the most time with and you choose to spend time with your true self, you inevitably elevate your own average. You become whole.
You become your own ultimate influence. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey of the mind today. Take a moment to really, truly enjoy the silence when this audio stops. We will catch you next time.